Alright, now in this video, we're going to start moving around within the viewports. To do that, let's take a look at these viewport controls down here. And there's a couple in particular that we'll look at. The zoom, the pan, the orbit, and the maximum viewport toggle. Alright, first the zoom. If I was to click on the zoom tool right here, the one that looks like a magnifying glass, and then click into my viewport, you can see by dragging the mouse I can zoom in on an object. And I can zoom in on various parts of that object just by moving my cursor and selecting where I want to zoom. That will work in any of the viewports. There's an easier way of doing it, or at least another way of doing it, and that is this. We can do it with the center wheel on the mouse. First, let's deselect the zoom tool. To deselect it, we have to click on something else. The something else that I usually click on would be up here. In our main toolbar, you'll see the Select Object tool. I call this my Safe button because when you clicked on that, there's really nothing that you can do to screw anything up. All you can do with it is select. Alright. So, to mimic the zoom tool, all you have to do is roll that center wheel. Now you'll see that this is a bit ratchety. To make the center wheel act more like the actual zoom tool down here, what you'll want to do is you'll want to hold down the Control and the Alt keys. If you do that at the same time and then push down the center wheel, you'll see you can zoom in on an object. Max is a professional level program, and it's set up for maximum efficiency because time's money. To become good at Max is almost like playing an instrument. You'll find that you're using all three keys on the mouse as well as keyboard shortcuts constantly in order to play the instrument, or in this case Max, well. Alrighty, moving on. We've looked at the zoom tool. Now let's look at the pan view tool. Okay, so that's the one that looks like a little hand. I've clicked on that. And so you can see my cursor's changed into what looks like a hand. Now I can just take that and move things around with my left mouse button, regular old button that you always push. That's the pan tool. Alright, there's an easier way of doing that as well. So I'm going to deselect my pan view tool by going up here to my Select Object tool, clicking on that. Once again, that is pretty much my go-to tool if I just want to deselect something. Alright, so now to pan something around, all I have to do is push down that center wheel button again, not rotating it, not rolling it, but just pushing it down and dragging my mouse around, and you'll see it acts very much like that pan tool. Now the orbit tool, that's the one that's right next to the pan tool. We click on that, and you can see this circle that I'm getting around the things. In here, if I want to, I can orbit all around, all around, all around. We do that in the perspective here. Once again, all around, all around, all around. Or I can do this. I'm going to deselect my orbit tool, and I'm going to get my Select Object tool, and I'm going to hold down the Alt key. The Alt key is the one that's right next to the Shift bar. Holding that down, pushing down that center wheel once again, when I drag it around, you see I get a nice orbit, and I orbit around that object. By the way, this is a really handy thing to know. Notice right now we're orbiting around the center of the wheel of the world, so to speak. We're orbiting around the center of this grid when we do this. That center point is staying in the center. On the other hand, I'm going to select another teapot here. Maybe grow another teapot. There we go. Right click so I don't keep making teapots. If I were to select this object, pan it to the center, and orbit, push down my Alt key, and push down my center wheel and start orbiting, you'll see now I'm orbiting around that. Doesn't matter where in the viewport it is. Let's say I move it over here. You'll see I'm still orbiting around that. That is a very useful thing to be able to do in order to find your way around things. So once again, we've seen that you can zoom using the zoom tool. You can pan using the pan view tool. You can orbit using the orbit tool. Or you could do all of these things simply by using a mouse button and the Alt key. So I'm going to go back once again to my Select Object tool. I'm going to zoom by holding down the Control and the Alt, pushing down the center wheel. I'm going to pan just by pushing down the center wheel. And I'm going to rotate by pushing down the Alt key and the center wheel.